Why do we laugh at celebrities? Could it be because they have more money than us? Could it be because they have more influence than us? Does that urge to clown them even come from a place of jealousy? On the other hand, why do celebrities make fools of themselves and give us something to laugh at in the first place? By now, most of us can predict the way that the internet will react to the actions of a celebrity. You just get that feeling. Our media radar goes off and tells us how good or bad the comment section under a post will be before we even look. Whether or not people are going to agree with odd takes or push someone out of the spotlight because of them. But why do these people risk it? For so many of these celebrities, all they have to do is coast through their life and enjoy the fortune they've built up after so many years of work. Whether it be music, writing, acting, no matter where you look in pop culture, you can find examples of people killing their career with wild messages or public appearances. But here's the thing, a lot of these individuals were forced into a role. You can be so many things in the media, but once you're labeled and tied to an audience, it's near impossible to escape. It doesn't matter if you're the genius, the wannabe genius, the humble guy, the wannabe humble guy, the funny fat guy or girl. Once you have your thing, that's it. When a public figure steps out of their assigned role, the media reacts right away. They're acting weird, they're pretending, they've changed, and that media reaction doesn't exist in a vacuum. It prompts a response from the celebrity themselves, creating a cycle of pressure and expectation. Now we have a negative feedback loop where every time a character we follow online attempts to reinvent themselves, they get pushed back into a familiar role. Take Lil Wayne for example. Wayne grew up as a young prodigy in a time where fans and labels only expected one thing from him: clean rhymes. This was a really good fit for him, and his 4 Grammys at just age 33 were evidence of that. So when he started getting experimental with his rock-adjacent album the next year titled Rebirth, fans started to act out.
On the number 8 spot, and that is Lil Wayne with Rebirth, which should not have been a birth at all, really should have been an abortion. I don't know how anyone allowed Lil Wayne to do a rock crossover record.
People acted like he was betraying the very identity they built for him. And that's the problem. Fans created a version of Wayne in their heads, and once he drifted even slightly outside of those lines, the internet tore him apart for it. That kind of pressure to stay in their lanes is exactly what makes celebrities crash out. When the world keeps telling you who you're supposed to be, you either fold into that identity or start lashing out just to feel some control. You also have to keep in mind that famous musicians are a sort of self-selecting group. In order to make it in that industry, you need to be the kind of person that bets on yourself no matter what. But how much of a role do fans really play in these people's careers? And why do some allow artists to grow while others shoot them down? Tyler, the Creator, is a great example of escaping that box. Very early on in his career, Tyler built an entire persona around shock value and being unpredictable. This would go on to work really well in his favor. As he matured, his music shifted into something more expressive, more polished, and more intentional. Where Wayne and Tyler, the Creator's story begins to differ is that Tyler changed fast enough so that the audience didn't have time to freeze him into one version of himself. This paired nicely with the fact that he dug his early roots into artistic themes of defiance. His fans eventually accepted that he was always going to evolve. That's very rare. Most artists don't get that kind of grace, and when they try to reinvent themselves, they get dragged for it. And that resistance from the audience is another reason celebrities start saying wild or stupid things. They're trying to step out of that corner that the world has placed them in. The point I'm trying to make here is that Tyler and Wayne are both weird people, but the key difference is that a Tyler fan expects him to say and do odd things. That fan base is far more accepting of weird actions. Meanwhile, Lil Wayne fans solidified their favorite musician into a role he's unlikely to ever escape. And this is where the conversation gets a lot bigger than just Tyler and Wayne. Because if fans can decide who's allowed to evolve, then how much control do these artists ever really have over their own identity? The industry already pushes them into hyper-specific roles. I mean, when have you seen Adam Sandler get casted as anything besides the funny man-child character, or Michael Cera as anything besides the awkward young adult? Once money gets involved, those roles turn into cages. That pressure stacks on top of fan expectations until someone eventually cracks. That's how you get people like Kanye West acting out in public under his new identity, or actors like Heath Ledger being pushed into darker, heavier roles because the industry liked the way it looked on them. It makes you wonder how much of a celebrity's so-called crazy behavior is actually them, and how much is the media pressuring them to act in these sorts of ways that draws as much attention as possible. But where the actions of celebrities get really weird is when we take a step back. When a public figure gets forced into a role by the media around them, it's easier for the world to understand why they do the things that they do. But what's even stranger are examples of huge names risking everything they have over so little. Originally, I didn't want to bring athletes into the conversation. As for a lot of them, especially in high-impact sports, there's a very real factor of CTE and long-term brain trauma that can explain some reckless decision-making. But that's what makes stories like Emmanuel Clase even weirder. The closing pitcher for the Cleveland Guardians, who would never have been exposed to head trauma like a football player or a UFC fighter. Clase forfeited his $20 million contract following a sports betting controversy that he was involved with. While the exact number wasn't revealed, what we do know is that the pitcher was getting a small kickback on a scandal that totaled around $400,000. You can be the judge of what kind of cash the pitcher was bribed with, but no matter how you look at it, this was nowhere near close to his MLB contract money. And this kind of backwards cost-benefit logic pops up everywhere. Even Shakira, someone who has made hundreds of millions of dollars over her career, risked serious legal trouble in Spain over alleged tax evasion starting in 2012. This would end up following the pop star over a decade, finally getting resolved in 2023. The money she supposedly hid was a fraction of her net worth, yet the risk she took threatened her whole reputation and potential jail time, not to mention years of legal trouble. What normal-minded person would even consider this risk given Shakira's financial situation? But I think that's the real key here. Once you get to a certain level, way beyond generational wealth, your internal scale breaks. Anyone would look at this situation and think, okay, this definitely is not worth it. But a celebrity surrounded by yes men, with millions of supporting fans, and a team whose entire job is to protect their image, the explanation for these strange behaviors begins to clear up. They start thinking they're untouchable. And that's where the weird decisions come from. It's not always greed and it's not always ego. Sometimes it's just that fame slowly pulls you out of reality. One day you wake up and you're risking a career, a contract, a whole legacy over something that barely matters. And that's why so many big names end up saying or doing things that make the rest of us ask, what are they thinking? The truth is, they aren't thinking. Not in the way the rest of us do. I believe that this stems from the simple fact that these celebrities are exposed to thousands of reactions a day. Think about it. Everyone else gets feedback from maybe a dozen people every day. Maybe you talk to a few friends or coworkers, but that's it. But a famous person? They are constantly getting feedback on every post they make, every interview they're a part of, and every piece of work they attach themselves to. The same moment gives you thousands of different impressions to millions of different people. Every move they make is put under a microscope and turned into content. After years of being under that microscope, it only makes sense that they begin to lose touch of reality. When everybody around you constantly reminds you that you're in charge, it begins to rewire your brain. When you have an entire team meant to clean up after you, it's far less likely that you're going to clean up after yourself. Similarly, when that same team responds with yes to whatever you say, the idea that people will ever disagree with you begins to slip. These people don't have to wait in line or worry about a boss giving them trouble. They are the center of their world. Big things don't feel big, and everything negative feels distant. On top of that, you've got millions of strangers watching you like a character in a TV show, waiting for you to mess up, cheering when you do, and punishing you when you don't play your part. It's no wonder celebrities end up saying bizarre things or making choices that look ridiculous from the outside. They're not operating with the same mental hardware that the rest of us have. Fame doesn't just change your lifestyle, it changes your sense of consequence. And once that happens, it's almost impossible to go back. At the end of the day, the real reason famous people end up doing things that look stupid, reckless, or completely out of character, it's not just the money or attention or the pressure from fans, it's a combination from all of it. Once you're famous, you stop being a person and start becoming a symbol. And the second you try to step outside of that idea, the world shoves you right back in. Some people like Tyler adapt by constantly switching their roles before anyone can freeze them. Others like Lil Wayne get stuck inside one version of themselves for life. But whether you stay in the box or try to break out of it, the result is the same. Fame slowly disconnects you from the same rules that the rest of us live by. Consequences don't feel real. Advice doesn't feel real. Even your own identity stops feeling real. So the actions get weirder, the comments get stranger, and the risks get dumber. And from the outside, we point and laugh and say, wow, how could someone so successful be such an idiot? So the next time a big name says something wild or tanks their whole career over something tiny, Maybe the better question isn't what were they thinking? It's why does anyone expect them to think normally at all?